I want to go over what happened at the Granville Township meeting last night regarding the data center ordinance, the good, the bad, and specifically some things that Kerry Benninghoff said that might not totally be true. So last night, Granville Township had a massive meeting regarding their data center ordinance. I don't know what the official count was, but there was at minimum 100 to 200 folks packed into this event center, all concerned about data centers in their local area. And so, some context, there is a supposed proposed data center going in Granville Township right here in Mifflin County. And it's up in the air whether or not the land has actually been sold. Has it been sold? It's wildly disputed. But the point is, there has been announced plans by this company to try and build a data center in Mifflin County, specifically Granville Township. The problem is, Granville Township doesn't have an ordinance right now that would protect against a data center, for a data center. There's literally nothing. There's nothing on the books. There isn't a noise ordinance. There's nothing. And so folks got together and said, we don't want this in our township. The solicitor threw together an ordinance. And in his words, it is the tightest possible ordinance that throws the most amount of hurdles in front of a possible data center that wants to come in to the township. Now, I got to give him props. On first glance, the ordinance seems pretty solid. There's a ton of pieces in this ordinance that talk about being 400 feet from special receptors. What are special receptors? Those are your homes, your churches, your facilities, your businesses, and making it so they have to be a certain footage away. They make it so you have to build berms all over the facility to hide the actual data center itself, plant trees, do water studies, do noise studies. My God, the list goes on. The amount of hurdles that this particular ordinance put in place is honestly, it's pretty intensive and would cost a lot more money than previously thought of. Because the reality is, it would force the data centers to have to do studies on the wildlife. It would force the data center to have to do studies on the noise. It would have to do studies on the water usage, their electricity usage. A million different things. Now, going through this ordinance, some believe that it doesn't go far enough. And I think that there's some merit to some pieces here. While I understand that the solicitor and some of the folks who are on the township supervisor's board were like, this is just good enough, I can understand some folks saying we want to go further. Because obviously, the more hurdles you place that can be legally upheld, the less chance that they'll come here. And so some folks brought up things like EMF testing. The question is, what is EMF, right? EMF is electromagnetic fields. So you actually deal with these on a daily basis and don't even realize it. Anytime you go under a power line and you hear that hum, that is literally the sound from an electromagnetic field. Your Wi-Fi router has an electromagnetic field. A lot of wireless devices have electromagnetic fields. And they have varying effects on people. And as the electromagnetic fields grow in size and in power, there are some impacts on folks. There were multiple studies done in 2022 and 2021 that showed that high levels of EMF radiation can be associated with an increased risk in childhood leukemia. There was one that was done in Mexico City that found that people who had been exposed to EMF in their homes had a significant increase in central nervous system tumors. Now, some of these are small studies. So, some of this could be skewed a little bit, but the point stands, there is some scientific evidence that EMF causes problems, and there is scientific evidence that shows that data centers do emit EMF. So why not put it in the ordinance? Just put it in there. Say, hey, we need a pre-test of what is the EMF in the area. We need models to show, is there going to be EMF emitted from the data center, and what's the mitigation? Throw it in there. It can't hurt. Another question that got brought up was compliance. Okay, so let's say they tick every single box on here and they build the center, which is what no one wants, but what happens if they do it? How can we enforce the things that are in the ordinance? When it came to sound, when it came to the lighting, when it came to the water usage, all these different things, right? One of the things I asked was, does the township zoning officer have the tools in order to test against some of these things? Like, do they have a sound meter to be able to test? And they were like, no. So that's problematic, but in theory, they would hope that this wouldn't even come. So I guess if a data center does come, they probably got to buy a sound meter. But the thing that came up was the restriction that they have on when they violate the ordinance, how much they can get charged. And in the state of Pennsylvania, townships have been limited that zoning officers can only basically charge through the courts if there is a violation, $500. I did a little bit more digging on that, and I'm no lawyer, but while it is still $500 per day, and that's a key thing, $500 a day is for the violation. So let's say they're violating the noise ordinance. They start running their generators 24/7, and they're violating the noise ordinance. It's $500 per day, but also per violation. And that was a revelation that I saw and went, oh my gosh. So not only, let's say they're ticking all the boxes of everything they're voiding. They're doing the noise ordinance. They're overdoing the noise. They have way too bright of light. They are not within compliance for their berms, or they don't have enough trees. Every single one of those can be charged at $500 per violation per day. So it's not just $500 per day. We're talking, it could be $5, $1,000, $1,500, depending on how many violations. And so, while yes, on the surface level, $500 a day, you might argue, well, these are billion-dollar companies, they'll just eat that. When it adds up, this is something that they are going to think about. And no business wants to be eating $15,000 a month in expansion car, just the cost of doing business, because they decided that, oh, we're just going to violate the noise ordinance. That's not possible for a business. Yeah, they have billions of dollars. They have billions of dollars from investors. And investors are not going to sit there and go, yeah, waste $15,000 a month violating the noise ordinances. They're going to go somewhere else. Another thing, too, that was brought up that I think got pushed a little bit under the rug, and I wasn't really super thrilled with it, was air pollution. Now, these actual data centers, typically speaking, are not putting out fossil fuel fumes, right? Their computers are putting out heat. The key thing is their generators. Now, in theory, there is language in here that makes it so running a generator 24/7 to where you would get the air pollution that we are seeing at some other data centers, it wouldn't be able to happen. But it doesn't make sense not to include it. You could do, again, baseline testing, monitoring during their actual time that they're there. And you could also, honestly, because there's a whole decommissioning piece in this ordinance, you could tie it to where if you created any air pollution and raised the smog level or XYZ, that you have to bring it back to the original status of the surrounding land, which is kind of touched on in the decommissioning piece of this actual ordinance. But I figure, I'm like, why not just put a little area in there about air pollution? I think I don't see a reason why you can't. You're making other arguments about the environment in separate areas. Go in on air pollution. So that way, if they want to run, because even if you give them the leeway of, we needed extra power and we had to run our generators, they still have to comply and make sure that they're not burning tons of fossil fuels and burning out the whole area. It just makes sense. Like it feels like an easy section to add that I believe would get held up in court. Now, one of the areas that I think could still be improved on, and I'll kind of wrap with this piece, is that some of the language actually is more passive and needs to be more engaged. So, for example, there's areas in there where there's recommendations. In my opinion, it should be requirements. There's a particular area where we do require to have Tier 4 generators, because that's the highest level from, I believe, the EPA. Don't quote me on that. But we require them to have a certain tier of generator, but then in another area, we're recommending them to adhere to a certain set of standards for data centers. Well, why not just require it? Now, maybe they could argue in court, be like, oh, well, you can't require us to. I don't see why not. We're requiring you over here to do these standards. Why not require them over here? The difference between we're requiring in one section where we're not in the other is a little weird to me, because the purpose is the same, making sure you're up to standard, you're up to code. So why not require both? The other piece is there are certain areas where it's like regular reporting. So with that said, all right, what is regular? To them, regular reporting could be every 2-3 years. But if you set the standard of, we want to report every 6 months of your water usage to make sure you are falling in compliance or whatever, just set the time frame. If they want to say it's unreasonable because you're asking for every 2 weeks, that's one thing. But I don't think any court's going to say it's unreasonable to set a time frame on every 6 months. We want you to submit your report, whether it's 6 months, yearly. At least set a time frame so we know when to expect it. God forbid if one of these move into the area. There's some more that I think I could get into with some of the semantics about some of this stuff. And some people say, well, John, why didn't you bring it up at the meeting? honest to God, like when somebody drops down a 17-page document in front of you and reads it verbatim, it's hard to sometimes comprehend everything that's going on. And so, much like I recommend for our lawmakers, taking time to read bills and think about them and then coming to a conclusion is a smart way to do lawmaking, unlike some of our folks that are currently in Harrisburg do, where apparently we're just kind of guessing at what's in a bill and then just letting it ride and then claiming later, oh, I just didn't know what was in it. Because to some extent, that's what some of our lawmakers are doing right now, and it's extremely frustrating. So here I am. I read a 17-page document. I think there's some good. Maybe there's some areas that could change it. But one thing I do want to stress to folks is that at a bare minimum, Granville Township, and honestly, every township and area in Mifflin County should be adopting some sort of a data center ordinance to protect themselves, because these data centers have basically come out and said anywhere that the transmission lines are there, up and down the Juniata River Valley, they are going to try and get land because they're finding places that don't have ordinances. And it's up to us to be able to protect. Unfortunately, it's up to us because it seems like our township supervisors, our county councilmen, and our folks in power are taking this at a snail's pace in some regards. Now, Granville Township is making rapid headway because it showed up in their backyard. But folks need to look at Granville Township and realize they shouldn't be waiting until a data center is proposed. They need to get ahead of it now because the data centers have claimed, and this is a broad stroke, but the companies behind these data centers have claimed that they are out there. They are contacting farmers. They are contacting landowners. They are trying to make deals. And maybe it won't be you or your neighbor, but someone will crack and someone will give in to the money. And sometimes I don't blame them. These companies are offering millions of dollars, sometimes over market, for land. And some folks in this economy are strapped. And so townships need to step up and actually come through and make ordinances like this. I think at a bare minimum, it's a start. It is the beginning, and we need them now more than ever. And if we want to get into the language, we want to add stuff, I think that's important to continue that conversation as we go on. This is not a pass the ordinance now and then forget about it later. It definitely is a moment where we need to zero in, get this thing passed, and then keep building on it. I think it's a good base. I think we need something rather than nothing. And I think it's something that can be continued to be built on, especially as data centers continue to evolve year over year with weird cooling systems. I mean, what's the next thing? They're going to say we have to dig wells into the ground because the tap water is too warm or something. Like, the reality is we have to be able to keep up with the times. And we need legislators, especially on a local level, to be able to take this seriously, not just think it's just, the yellings of certain people, and to take action. Granville Township has set the stage, and now it's up to other townships in the area, looking at Oliver, looking at Union, to go up and say, we are going to also fight this battle too. Now, I want to talk about Kerry. Kerry Benninghoff was at the meeting, and typically speaking, I've tried not to get into it politically, but he decided to. And so now, I think it's time to clap back against some of his statements. Some folks might not like this, but these are the facts. Kerry Benninghoff got up front, in front of 100, 200 some odd people, and made multiple claims about how legislation works, about his views-ish, I guess, kind of without giving some answers, and also made claims. Now, what is frustrating is that it seems to me that Kerry Benninghoff is trying to act like as if this is a new thing, that only in the last couple weeks that this has come to his attention, that now he's learning. He made the claim that he is learning about this with all of us. What's frustrating about that is Kerry Benninghoff has seen data center bills as early as March. This is a new issue for us because obviously it's right here in our backyard, right? But for the state legislature, they've been discussing this for a while. Josh Shapiro has been pushing his grid initiative. He's been pretty out there publicly about support for data centers. And only really recently, as more and more news stories have popped up, have more common folk, your everyday 9-to-5ers, realize that this is a problem, especially as they start popping up in your backyard. Kerry Benninghoff has seen not one, not two, but 3 separate bills related to data center regulation in front of him since March. And I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. The reality is, these are public votes. He voted against HB 1834, which was an act providing for the regulation of commercial data centers. He voted against HB 2150, which was an act providing annual reporting of energy and water consumptions by data centers while imposing a penalty. The idea being making them have to report to the state their water and electricity usage, and if they don't, they would get some sort of a fine. That was on 413. Additionally, on 413, he voted against HB 2151, which was an act amending Title 53 of the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, providing for data center ordinance assistance. Basically, it was a big bill that would have given recommendations for local municipalities on how to do their ordinances. But pretty bare bones kind of bill. There wasn't even really requirements in it. And he voted against it. Now, that leaves two possibilities. Either Kerry Benninghoff knows about data centers and has known about it, benefit of the doubt, as early as 324, and has been voting against it, and now is coming around on it because people are upset, or he genuinely didn't know what he was voting on in those bills. Both options, in my opinion, are bad, because either you're not doing your research or you're not in tune with your constituents. Both are poor representations of what a state representative should be. Now, something that's really frustrating, though, is that Kerry got up and talked about how it's not really his fault and he has nothing to do with the data centers right now. Which, again, he's voted no on multiple bills that would have done something for data centers. So that already feels like a strike one. But he claims, and he's right about this, he doesn't control what bills come to the floor for a vote. That is the Speaker of the House and the Leader of the Senate, Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman, and you have Rep. Joanna McClinton, who's the Leader of the House right now. So that's true. It's kind of disingenuous, though, because he's trying to paint like as if it's a Democrat problem. And he goes, oh, there's the Democrats in the House, and they pull these bills, and blah, blah, blah. That's true, but okay, you have the proof now that there's been at least 3 bills pushed through that he's voted no on. Now, those bills passed. So even with his no vote, they passed the House. But now they're stuck in the Senate. And the Senate is controlled by Majority Leader Joe Pittman. Now, Joe Pittman, to put it bluntly, is a Republican who has claimed that he does not care for any of this legislation. In an interview with Spotlight PA, he said he is appreciative of legislation sent over by the state House, but he wants to consider the issues more holistically. This would mean encouraging data centers to be transparent with host municipalities and to bring energy to the electrical grid, though he's added he's not entirely sure that this could be accomplished through legislation. I'm sorry, my dude, that's literally your job, to make legislation to help your constituents. My God. And when pressed about it, Kerry just was like, well, go look it up. Go look up who is the leaders and whatnot. And I had folks who actually talked to Kerry after the meeting and said, if you provide us a bill and you tell us who to talk to, we will go out and we'll push. And effectively, he didn't want to hear it. And so now I'm going to do what he should have done as a representative and tell you what you should push if you want a data center moratorium. Because let's face it, folks, right now, data centers are in a race to beat you to your local municipality, to make it so they can slip in under the radar and get their plans in before you have a chance to make your ordinance. And they're doing it across the nation. And so instead of letting them try to win this race with their billions of dollars, why shouldn't the state pass a moratorium to allow for municipalities to catch up? To say, oh my gosh, this is a problem we can't face. We need to take a second. I mean, literally, we had, like, the Granville Township solicitor literally left. He dropped out because of the conflict of interest with the data center. All of a sudden, Granville Township didn't have representation. I mean, I'm really surprised that they didn't push the data center packet proposal then. And so, let's make it easy. There is a bill in the PA Senate right now. It is Senate Bill 1359. Now, Kerry's not a state senator. I get that. But he's your representative for your area. And Judy Ward is too. Senator Judy Ward is here. And you should be pushing on Judy Ward as well. And here's the deal. Now, Judy Ward isn't on the committee that this bill is in. Additionally, we should be pressuring as constituents in Pennsylvania. You have every right to send a letter to Joe Pittman and say, hey, you should bring this to a vote. Now, it's in committee. That's where they're going to get you. Joe Pittman will be like, well, the committee has to deal with it. All right, let's talk about the committee. Because here's the deal. These people work for us. Regardless of where you sit on the political aisle, these folks work for us. They work for their constituents, but when you're in these leadership positions, they work for us. So let's call it. Don Keefer is the chair of the local government committee where this bill is sitting right now. This bill would pass a 3-year moratorium that would make it so we would have time to catch up and make proper ordinances and not feel like we have to rush to put something out in order to protect our communities. Katie Muth, I'm sorry, Katie, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Senator Katie Muth is the one who proposed it. It has bipartisan support in terms of within the bill itself. There's Democrat and Republican co-signers. And right now, Don Keefer is the chair of the committee where it's sitting. I would tell you that you should send a letter or make a call and call on Don Keefer. Hey, you should probably bring this up for a vote in your committee. We should be pushing this through yesterday. Additionally, if you're more on the Democrat side, now I think it shouldn't matter either way. You're the chair of the committee. You should be listening to all the voters, not just the folks in your party. But if you think that they're not going to listen because maybe you're on the other side of the party fund system, Patty Kim is the minority chair. She's the Democrat. She is the minority chair on that committee. Her information's here. You should reach out to her. I know I'm going to be. Once this committee advances, my theory would be that since this is bipartisan support, I don't see why it wouldn't get advanced, but it should get advanced to the full Senate, and then Joe Pittman needs to bring this for a vote. And if Joe Pittman and the folks in the Senate don't believe that we should have a data center moratorium, they need to put their votes on it and prove it. I'm so tired of these representatives hiding behind stances and saying, well, we're just not going to bring it up for a vote. No, sometimes, I'm sorry, you need to put yourself behind a vote. Because let's face it, folks, sometimes the only time you know whether a representative is actually for something or against something is when you see them voting. Because otherwise, they can say whatever they want to say. And just like Kerry wants to say, act as if that he hasn't seen these bills, and there's 50-some bills in the House, and they're floating around. Kerry's already voted against 3 of them. You want to know why Kerry's voted against 3 of them? And this is allegedly, this is my opinion, but it's because Kerry gets a ton of money from folks who seek to benefit from data centers. Now, Kerry stood up and made a statement. Kerry Benninghoff said, quote, I don't take money from them. In my opinion, that means the data center folks and those affiliated. Now, me personally, I believe that if you take money from an organization that seeks to benefit, not just maybe the AI data centers themselves, but those who are going to benefit massively from the data centers, it's all the same thing. You might be able to weasel a way out and say, well, but I didn't take money from the AI data center themselves. That's a fine line. Because here's the reality. In 2024, when Kerry, now you can make the argument right now, in the current cycle that we have, which has only been from January till now, he has not taken AI data center money. That is a fact. He also hasn't taken, to my recollection, electricity money or oil money or anything like that from this first cycle. But context, he ran unopposed in the primary. There was no one really running against him. So it wasn't really fundraising. Let's go back to 2024. Kerry Benninghoff didn't have an opponent. He ran unopposed through the entire system. And he won his race. Even during that time, when they're not really fundraising because you're assumed you're going to win, he got a pile of donations. In 2024, Kerry Benninghoff got about $6,250 from organizations and companies that, in my opinion, would benefit greatly from the development of data centers. That means energy companies. So he got $2,000 from Energy Transfer Employee Management Company, which is Energy Transfer's PAC. Energy Transfer is one of the largest midstream energy companies operating out of Austin, Texas. He got $1,250 from PA Oil Marketers, or POMAC. They're the petroleum association that raises funds through personal contributions from industry stakeholders in the oil industry. PA Coal Pack. It's coal. You burn coal to make electricity. They're going to benefit from this. There's already been coal plants that have reopened in order to supply more electricity to the grid. UGI Utilities, they're a utility company. They're going to benefit from more data center build-outs. They got $1,000 from them and $1,000 from the PA Coal Pack. I don't know if I mentioned that. First Energy Corp Pack, their First Energy, that's one of our local electricity providers. They got $500. And then PA Dunsk Light, or Penduec, which is a Pittsburgh electricity company, they gave $500. So in total in 2024, when he had no opponent, he didn't need to fundraise. He got $6,250 from these people that, again, are counting on, I'm donating for a reason. He can claim, oh, it's such a little amount of money. I don't know about you, but if somebody walked up to me with $1,000 and said, oh, there's no, like, I just really like you, buddy, you and me both would look at them and go, what do you want? But apparently for politicians, when you get $2,000, you're just, they just really like what I do. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. But now, okay, let's get away from it was small money in 2024. Let's go back to when he had an opponent. In 2022, Kerry Benninghoff ran against Robert Ziegler. It was a competitive race. Robert raised $100,000, made a good fight against Kerry Benninghoff, which means Kerry actually fundraised. And boy, did he get some money. $13,000 from UGI Utilities, $8,500 from Pendusk Light from the Pittsburgh Energy Company, $10,000 from Vistra Employees Pack. Vistra is a massive electricity generation company. ExxonMobil gave him $10,000, both through their corporation pack and their regular pack. $3,500 from PPL. $3,000 from the coal pack. They're back again. $3,000 in coal. I really wonder if when the coal pack donates, do they give the money in the coal sack? Like, that'd be funny. Energy Transfer Employee Management Company, or Energy Transfer, we talked about that in 2024. They gave $2,000. Contra Energy, they're an oil and gas company that merged with Devon. They gave $2,000. PA Oil Marketers, and again, $1,500. Constellation Energy, they're another electricity company, $1,000. Convanta Energy LLC, $1,000. Calpine Corporation, another electricity and generation company, $2,000. Diversified Gas and Oil, another $1,000. Monroe Energy LLC, they're another $1,000. USI Utilities, which I think is actually a typo. It was UGI Utilities because it literally says /UGI Utilities, so they gave another $1,000. TransCanada USA, they're an oil and natural gas company that spans between the U.S. and Canada. That's $500. And now we get to the fun ones. Kerry Benninghoff said, if up until this point you said, well, technically those aren't data centers. Technically those aren't big tech. Technically those aren't AI. In 2022, Kerry Benninghoff took $1,000 from Lumen Technologies. Lumen Technologies, if you go to their main website, is a computing and AI company with a page on data centers. The other one is Unisys, which they incorrectly spelled on their campaign contribution report as Inisys. So I'm like struggling to figure out what this company is, but I'm glad I caught it because they're also a data AI computing company, and they got $500. That's $1,500 from computing companies. Now, maybe you could make the argument that in 2022, these companies weren't pushing AI. Maybe they were slowly expanding data centers, whatever it may be, right? But it feels disingenuous to walk in front of people and look at them and go, I don't take money from those guys. When the reality is, in 2022, Kerry Benninghoff took about $62,500 from people that, in my opinion, corporations, that will benefit from more data center growth. And so while we can't call it a bribe, because political donations are not bribes in the state of Pennsylvania, by corporations, apparently. We create these PACs, and they can just give as much, within the guidelines and the money that they give. That's okay, apparently. So I can't call it a bribe, and I can't say that those donations influenced his 3 no votes. But I can tell you that he voted no on 3 bills that would have impacted data centers in Pennsylvania in 2026 as early as 3/24. I can tell you he took all that money in from people that stand to benefit from AI data center development. And I can also tell you that he voted yes on the bill that gave data centers tax exemption for purchasing their server equipment in Pennsylvania in 2021. Now, Benninghoff will say that that was an omnibus, massive tax relief / exemption bill. There was numerous things there. It wasn't just the data center tax bill, but it was a headline and has been a headline. And Josh Shapiro has walked around and used that, saying, we are open for business. You can get your data center equipment tax-free in Pennsylvania. Kerry Benninghoff voted for that in 2021. Now, in 2021, was AI hyperscale data centers the news that it was today? No. I can give him that credit. I can also give him the credit that he's trying to grow business in Pennsylvania. I understand that. But to sit in front of people today, knowing that this is in your past, knowing that these are your votes, knowing that this is your donation history, knowing that these corporations are who's been funding your campaign, I'm sorry, it's disingenuous. And you can go, well, John, how are you different? Well, the reality is I don't take corporate money. If someone walked in today and offered me $2,000, but it's from a corporation, turn that down in a heartbeat. Wouldn't take that kind of money. Because respectfully, I have morals, and I can't be bought. Now, Kerry will say he can't be bought either, but I don't know about you, but $13,000 from UGI, $8,500 from a lighting company, $1,000 from an AI company. I'm sorry. When someone handed me a $500 check for my campaign, I almost cried. And that's not me being, extra, but it's a reality. Money's tight for people. I can't just give somebody $1,000. And like I said earlier, if someone handed you $1,000, the first thing you go is, what do you want? And so now we're just supposed to believe that when these companies hand multiple thousands of dollars to these individuals for their campaigns, that they just go, oh, thank you, sir. And I'm totally going to vote with a clean conscience now. No. I'm not that dumb. And you aren't either. So now if Kerry wants to talk about some of these things, I'd welcome it. Hey, we could go down, have some pizza, have a debate. A debate would be fun. We could have a town hall on data centers right here in Lewistown or up in Bellefonte or wherever. I think it'd be great because people gave him kudos for coming to that meeting. But Kerry hasn't had a town hall in years. You can't find Kerry unless it's something that is important, like that event. All of a sudden, he starts showing up at things like this when the people start getting rowdy. But in a normal non-election year, where would he be? So if Kerry wants to rebut some of this stuff, I think we could hash it out at a fun little debate. I think we could go, have a great time. We could chat in front of a live audience and take questions about data centers and then talk about it. I don't know. If you want to see that, maybe you're interested in that too. We could talk about what we were looking for the whole district. Let me know in the comments below and maybe let Kerry know. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Because maybe he can clear up these donations, the votes. Maybe he would commit to a moratorium. Because here's the thing. When that Senate bill, if that Senate bill gets passed, it's got to go to the House of Representatives. And the question becomes then, how will Kerry vote when an actual moratorium comes in front of him? Better yet, why doesn't Kerry propose a moratorium on his own? He could do that tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's Saturday when this is going up. He could do that on Monday. He could go down to the legislative office, be like, I want you to draft a moratorium bill, and I'm going to get it co-sponsored by some other folks. He could do it if he wanted to. But he won't. Unless he wants to prove me wrong. Kerry, prove me wrong, man.